You are here because you want to build a budget elf deck. So with that in mind, let's go. Welcome to Muscles and Magic the Gathering. Now, I am Bobby Maximus. I am the Muscles. These cards, Magic the Gathering, something that's been a passion of mine for over 30 years now. And I'm kind of laughing because this is not a budget elf deck at all. You have been tricked. You fell for the clickbait. That said, it's kind of my budget elf deck, my original elf deck. It's called the Woodland Realm. It's named after Legolas's birthplace. It's helmed by Lathril, Blade of the Elves. By the way, I'll put a link to the video I did on that deck in the show notes. But the value of that deck is $2,500 right now. So this is my budget elf deck. It's based on Marwyn the Nurturer, and it comes in at a low cost, an extremely low cost of $700. So with that in mind, let's go over Bobby's budget elves. And I realize how absurd that is. I do have a massive collection. I've been collecting for 30 years, so I'm really, really fortunate. But yeah, with all that in mind, let's talk about this budget elves deck, which is not budget at all. In fact, in a head-to-head game, this elf deck might beat my big boy elf deck, all right? So let's talk about the commander that I chose, Marwyn the Nurturer. Now, when you talk about best elf commanders, Lathril and Marwyn are what I call 1A and 1B. I don't know if one's better than the other. I built out Lathril first because I want to include black cards. Like I wanted an Imperial Seal. I wanted a Demonic Tutor. I wanted a Vampiric Tutor. Like I wanted all those cards, Bolas's Citadel, things like that. But there is an argument in the elf world that Marwyn is just as good, if not better. So let's say 1A and 1B. Now let's look at what Marwyn does. And by the way, Marwyn does have a house in that Lathril deck. And again, I'll put that in the show notes for you so you can watch that video. But anyway, Marwyn the Nurturer, whenever another elf enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Marwyn the Nurturer. And then if you tap it, you can add an amount of mana equal to Marwyn's power. So this card is based on elves. It's a kinfolk deck, and it's based on 1/1 counters. Let's talk about the only Planeswalker that's in the deck. Freely's Llanowar's Fury. The +2 ability, create a 1/1 green elf druid creature token with add a green mana. The -2 ability, destroy target artifact or enchantment. Removal is huge in Commander, so I love this card for that. And you can use that on turn 1. And then the -6 card, for each green creature you control, you draw a card. Card draw is another important aspect of Commander. Now let's talk about creatures. And there are some repeats from my Lathril deck, but I tried to add different creatures as well to add a bit more flavor to my collection. So the first one we're going to talk about is Dianus, Elvish Archdruid from the Jumpstart set. Elves you control have, whenever this creature becomes tapped during your turn, untap it and put a 1/1 counter on it. This ability triggers only once each turn. Eladrami Corpsgal. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast creature cards from the top of your library. Tap 2 untapped creatures you control. Reveal a card from your hand or the top card of your library. If you reveal a creature card this way, put it onto the battlefield. Activate only during your turn. Here's a non-elf creature, but it needed to go in here because, again, there's a huge 1/1 counters theme in this deck. I want to make this clear. This deck is fundamentally different than that other elf deck that I built, right? The Wildwood Scourge. This creature enters with X 1/1 counters on it. Whenever one or more 1/1 counters are put on another non-Hydra creature, that's key. There's a lot of non-Hydra creatures in here, mainly elves. Put a 1/1 counter on the Hydra. Numa, Draga Chieftain. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay XX. When you do, distribute X 1/1 counters among any number of target elves. Forgotten Ancient. Not in my other elf deck either. Actually, the last few cards have not been in the other elf deck. Whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a 1/1 counter on Forgotten Agent or Forgotten Ancient, not Agent. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of 1/1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. Regal Force, another great card for a mono green deck. When Regal Force enters the battlefield, draw a card for each green creature you control. Vorinclex, Monstrous Radar in the Phyrexian text, a card I love. Now, this is the one that every time you add a counter, you add more counters. And then every time your opponent is supposed to add a counter, they add less counters. So this is Vorinclex. Love that card. Primordial Hydra. By the way, this deck does have a Hydra sub-theme. There are a bunch of Hydras in this deck. I say a bunch. There are a few. We've got the Primordial Hydra. It enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, double the number of 1/1 counters on Primordial Hydra. Primordial Hydra has trample as long as it has 10 or more 1/1 counters on it. Monster of a card. Heritage Druid. Tap 3 untapped elves you control and add 3 green mana to your mana pool. Haldir, Lorien Lieutenant. Haldir, Lorien Lieutenant enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it. Vigilance. Until the end of turn, other elves you control gain Vigilance and get a 1/1 get 1/1 for each 1/1 counter on Haldir. Galadriel Gift Giver. Whenever Galadriel Gift Giver enters the battlefield or attacks, choose 1. Put a 1/1 counter on another target creature. Create a food token. Create a treasure token. The Wolverine Riders. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. Whenever another elf enters the battlefield, you gain life equal to its toughness. The Imperious. Perfect. You can create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token, or other elves you control get +1/+1, so a bit of an elf anthem. Elvish Warmaster. Whenever one or more other elves enter the battlefield under your control, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn, and then if I pay a bunch of mana, 7, but trust me, in this deck, mana is not a problem. Elves you control get +2/+2 and get Death Touch till the end of turn. The Well-Wisher, gain a life for each elf in play. Great way to gain life. Elvish Champion, all elves get +1/+1 and have Forest Walk. Fauna Shaman, right? Discard a creature card, search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Kind of like Survival of the Fittest on a creature. Love that card. Leaf Crowned Visionary. Other elves you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay a green mana. If you do draw a card, I want to bring up card draw for a minute. If you want to build a competitive commander deck, if you want to build a good commander deck, the 3 most important areas you're looking for are tutors, card draw, and mana ramp. This deck has all 3, but it has a ton of card draw, a ton of mana ramp. So just think about that as you build your decks. Speaking of mana ramp, we have the Fyndhorn Elves. We have another mana ramp type card. Add a green mana for each elf you control. Other elves, creatures you control get +1/+1. So it is an elf anthem, if you will. The Elvish Visionary. When Elvish Visionary enters the battlefield, draw a card. I wanted to feature this in this elf deck because I didn't feature it in my other elf deck. Dragon Warcaller. Multi-kicker. You may pay an additional 1 colorless and 1 green mana any number of times you cast a spell. It enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each time it was kicked. With this deck, I've kicked this like as much as 20 times before with the amount of mana that I'm creating, especially if you use Marwyn, the Nurture, in combination with the Staff of Domination, and then this, you can go absolutely bananas. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1 for each 1/1 counter in Dragon Warcaller. Gallic Readers. Had to include this one from the Streets of New Capenna. I wish I had one of those super fancy versions of it, but I don't, and I bought a lot of Streets of New Capenna. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, choose one that hasn't been chosen this turn. Put a 1/1 counter on it, create a tap treasure token, you gain 2 life. Gwenna, the Eyes of Gaia. More mana ramp. Add 2 mana in any combination of colors. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell or activate abilities of a creature or creature card. Whenever you cast a creature spell, power 5 or greater, put a 1/1 counter on it. Reclamation Sage. Remember I talked about removal? This allows me to destroy an artifact or an enchantment. For Modern Horizons 3, I love these double-sided cards. The mana on the back helps with mana ramp. When Disciple of Free Release enters the battlefield, they may sacrifice another creature. If you do, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. We have Dinin, Gilt Leaf Daein, Reach, and then other elf creatures get +1/+1. There's a lot of elf anthems in this deck, and whenever it attacks, you gain 1 life for each attacking elf you control. The Immaculate Magistrate. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature for each elf you control. Monster card in this deck. Lyssalana Huntsmaster. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token. With all the elves in this deck, you know this had to be and include the Allosaurus Shepherd, one of my favorite cards for an elf deck. This spell can't be countered. Green spells you control can't be countered. That's really, really important to put this in a mono green deck. And until the end of turn, each elf creature you control has base power, toughness 5/5, and becomes a dinosaur as well. Priest of Titania, massive mana ramp. Llanowar Elves, all right? Massive mana ramp. Crater Hoof Behemoth, massive card for this deck, all right? It's a game ender, especially with all the elf tokens on the board. And then the ultimate 1/1 counter card for this type of deck, the Walking Ballista. You see me reaching up top. I got some extra cards because I did get somebody else in the mail. And I will do this sometimes during my shows. We're going to do some live upgrades. We need to add a Rathalos Llanowar Emissary, and we need to add the Biorhythm, all right? I ordered these, love these cards. These need to go in my deck. And yes, I play with banned cards. I don't believe in the banned list, all right? All cards are fun. All cards are welcome at my table. We don't exclude anybody. So let's do a live upgrade. The question is, what do I want to take out of this deck? Now, if you're asking me about Rathalos, Rathalos is a tremendous card. I think it can be dangerous as a commander. That's what they're worried about with the unbanning. But in the 99, theoretically, it's not that much different than a Gaia's Cradle. It's not that much different than a Priest of Titania, especially in the context that I'm playing it in an elf deck. So I'm going to add something to this deck. I got to take something out. And I think we are going to take, as sad as it makes me, we're going to take out the Elvish Visionary. All right. It's 21% card. Yes, it helps with card draw, but it certainly doesn't do as much as Rathalos. I'm actually going on my Mox field now on my side computer to update this. By the way, you can get this deck list. You can get this in the show notes. We're going to put Rathalos Llanowar Emissary in this deck. We just bumped the value of the deck up to about $750. So that makes me really happy because I build this deck, build my decks based on collectability or collection. So let's get rid of that. I guess I can't call it a budget deck anymore, can I? We are blowing right through our budget. So let's add that one. And now we got to figure out something to add for Biorhythm. Now, I do have in this deck 34 creatures, so that's a lot. I will probably cut a creature for that. Let's see what I want to cut. This is where it gets hard. I hate cutting friends from my deck. I love all the cards in this deck. I don't want to cut any of my Hydras because I said there was a little bit of a Hydra sub-theme. Man, this is going to get tough. I think I am actually going to cut, let's see, maybe Lyssalana Huntsmaster. Yeah, let's get rid of that. It has a pretty high casting cost, and I want to keep the mana ramp of the other cards to keep the deck moving fast. So let's get rid of the Lyssalana Huntsmaster. We're going to remove that. We are going to add Biorhythm. All right, there we go. It is, what version of Biorhythm is that? Let's take a good look here. It is not 9th edition. This is going to be, thank you for sticking with me. It's from Onslaught. Thanks for sticking with me during these live upgrades. I absolutely love that. Going to fix my camera here. All right, so Lyssalana Huntsmaster, you are gone. And we are going to add the Biorhythm, and we're going to put that in Sorceries, and we will talk about that in a minute, all right? So we did some live upgrades. We got our creatures. Now let's talk about the artifacts that we have in the deck. We have the Eldrazi Monument. Creatures you control get +1/+1. Have flying and indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. If you can't sacrifice Eldrazi Monument with the amount of tokens in this deck, that's not going to be a problem at all. Coat of Arms. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least one creature type with it. I love this card as a creature anthem. The only drawback with this is that it gives other kinfolk players a creature anthem. If I was going to replace that, I might do a Door of Destinies, or I might do, there actually is no Door of Destinies in this deck, so that's the one I might put in. Banner of Kinship is a great one to put in. Patchwork Banner is a great one to put in. Speaking of banners, the Vanquisher's Banner. As Vanquisher's Banner enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We are going to choose elves. They get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell that type, draw a card. Ronus's Monument from Amonkhet. Green creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast a creature spell, target creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample till the end of turn. The Elf Sword, Sword of the Animus. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. Whenever equipped creature attacks, you may search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped. Soul Ring, greatest mana ramp card ever. My whole argument about unbanning Mana Crypt relies on this card. If you were going to have an opening hand and you could have a Mana Crypt or a Soul Ring, you'd almost always take a Soul Ring, right? So Mana Crypt should be unbanned. Commander's Plate, the greatest piece of commander protection ever if you are playing with a mono-colored deck. Emerald Medallion, cost reducer for green spells. Gauntlet of Power, a way to mana ramp. Not only a way to mana ramp, it's a creature anthem as well. Swiftfoot Boots, protect my commander. Herald's Horn. As Herald's Horn enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. The Staff of Domination. This is that card that goes bonkers with Marwyn. Create unlimited mana. The Ozolith, another great card for 1/1 counters. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith had counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith onto target creature. So those are my artifacts. And do not forget about that Marwyn and Staff of Domination, unlimited mana, all right? Now let's talk about the sorceries. And we've already had a spoiler alert because you saw me update my deck. We have Biorhythm. Each player's life total becomes a number of creatures he or she controls. Great when I have 1,000,000 elf tokens. Not great for you when you have 3 creatures on the board. Triumph of the Hordes, monster card. Until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample and infect. One of the most hated cards in Magic the Gathering. Gladrium Ambush. This is actually in both of my elf decks. Create X 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens where X is the number of attacking creatures. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-elf creatures. Pick your poison. True budget card right here. There's a bit of budget to this deck, right? Each opponent sacrifices an artifact. Each opponent sacrifices an enchantment. Each opponent sacrifices a creature with flying. You get to choose one. The Archdruid's Charm. Search your library for a creature or land card and reveal it. Put it onto the battlefield tapped. And if it's a land card, otherwise put it into your hand, then shuffle. So a great tutor. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Exile target artifact or enchantment. Worldly Tutor. Maybe the greatest green tutor of all time. This card right here. Savage in a deck with a lot of 1/1 counters. Draw a card for each creature you control, the 1/1 counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible till the end of turn. You know I had to include that. Couple more for you here. Fog from 30th anniversary. I bought a bunch of packs of these. Absolutely love what Magic did with that. I know I'm probably in the minority there, but I absolutely love the set. And I got one of these really, really cool retro border cards, so I had to put this in. Fog, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn. And I also can't tell you for a budget card how many times this card has saved me in a game of Commander. And then from Tarkir, Dragonstorm, a newer set. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less. Put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle, and it's got Harmonize, so you can use it again in the graveyard. Speaking of 30th anniversary, we're going to talk about enchantments now, but we have Web. Enchanted creature gets +0/+2 and has reach. Reach is important in enough deck because if there's one area I am weak, it's in flyers. So we have Web. We have the Greater Good. Sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to that sacrificed creature's power, then choose and discard 3 cards. One of the meanest cards in Magic the Gathering history. Kenrith's Transformation, kind of like Oko's second ability. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to draw a card, and then enchanted creature loses all abilities as a green elk creature with base power and toughness 3/3. Exploration. You may play an additional land on each one of your turns and a natural growth. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until the end of turn. Now let's talk about lands. And for the most part, we have a bunch of just basic lands in here. And I've got the Lord of the Rings ones, Modern Horizons 3, Outlaws of Thunder Junction. We've got Innistrad. What else do we have here? The Fallout lands. I love those. It's a beautiful foiling. The Double Masters. All right. More Fallout lands. So just a bunch of different lands that I like from the Magic the Gathering universe. There are 38 total lands in this deck. 39 if you include the MDFC. But now let's look at the special lands. Beside You Who Endures. Super useful. I think this is one of the best lands ever. I wish I had more of these, but you can add a green mana, or you can channel, you can discard it and then destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player searches their library for a land card with a basic land type, put it onto the battlefield, and shuffle. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Yavimaya Hollow. Add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, regenerate target creature. We have the Shire. All right, can allow me to create some food tokens, and then Castle Garenbreak. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a forest. You can add a green mana, and if you pay 4 mana, you add 6 mana and spend this mana ability only to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures. So that is my elf deck. Absolutely love it. We said it was budget, but now with the upgrades, it's about to $750. So I don't know if I can call it budget anymore, but this is my Marwyn deck. We're going to give it the respect it deserves. This is not a budget deck. This is my other elf deck, and I don't even want to call it secondary. I mean, I kind of do because Lathril was my main, but like the side chick here, Marwyn, pretty damn powerful and could probably take Lathril down, right? There are some cards that I would add to this deck, and I'm actually looking one up right now, and the one that I would add would be the Ancient Bronze Dragon. Whenever Ancient Bronze Dragon deals combat damage to a player, roll a d20. When you do, put X 1/1 counters on each of up to 2 target creatures, where X is a result. Can you imagine that with Marwyn? How big we can pump Marwyn up. So that would be a massive card to add to this deck. If you have any ideas for me, I would love to hear them. Now, I do have a Lathril deck. I do have a 1/1 counter deck I call Hardened Scales. Hardened Scales could be an include in this deck as well. The reason I didn't include it, because I had it in another deck, and when I build decks, they're based on collectability. But I'm always looking to fine-tune these things. I'm always looking to add to them. I've got 55 total commander decks, each with kind of a unique flavor or commander. So if you have any ideas for this deck or other ones, please put them in the comments below. There will be a deck list in my Moxville, but beware, by the time you get to it, the decks may have changed a little bit, because I am always, for example, here is a bunch of extra cards that I have. I'm always tinkering. And I'm always doing stuff. Here's an Intuition. Here's a Gristlebrand. Here's a Blasphemous Edict. Here's a Whip of Erebus. Now, obviously, these are cards I'm not adding to this deck. Here's a Crop Rotation. That could certainly go in this deck. All right. Here's a Lotus Petal. Here's a Sensei's Divining Top. Here's another Mana Crypt. I mean, I'm always looking to add. Look at this beautiful Muldrotha. Anyway, I'm always looking to add to my decks and tinker. These cards that I just showed you are going in decks, but I'm always looking for suggestions. So please put them in the comments. And like I said, I'm always tinkering, always upgrading. And I absolutely love, more than anything, sharing this passion of mine with you. Thank you for spending some time with me today. Thank you for looking at one of my favorite decks, my Budget Elf deck. And I will see you next time.